3 or 4 years, and they're some of the best partners a man could ever ask for. I'm getting to spend a lot of time with Henry and Kenny and Tickle, and hell, I've hauled 10,000 pounds worth of fruit to Virginia to these guys. That's a hell of a lot of fruit.
Josh Owens from Moonshiners has always stood out as one of the most unforgettable personalities on the show. With his wild sense of humor, fearless attitude, and unmistakable Southern charm, he quickly became someone viewers loved watching. He seemed like the kind of man who enjoyed every moment of life, riding motorcycles, working in the woods, and sharing laughs with friends. But behind that confident smile and adventurous spirit was a story filled with hardship, painful setbacks, and moments that nearly ended everything. For many fans, Josh represented freedom. He lived outside the rules most people followed, chasing excitement and living life at full speed. Yet the same lifestyle that made him fascinating to watch also brought him dangerously close to tragedy more than once. To understand how his life took such dramatic turns, you have to go back to where his story really began. Josh Owens was raised in the countryside of North Carolina, a place known for its tight-knit communities and long traditions. In small towns like the one he grew up in, everyone tends to know each other. News spreads quickly, and families often stay connected for generations. Life there is simple compared to big cities. People work with their hands, spend time outdoors, and value independence. That environment shaped Josh from the beginning. As a child, he wasn't someone who enjoyed staying inside. He preferred being outdoors, exploring the woods, or fixing anything mechanical he could get his hands on. Friends who knew him during those early years often described him as energetic, curious, and fearless. If something had wheels or an engine, Josh wanted to ride it or rebuild it. That curiosity eventually turned into a passion that would shape much of his life. As Josh grew older, motorcycles became one of the most important parts of his world. Dirt bikes especially captured his attention. The speed, the noise, and the thrill of racing through rough terrain gave him a rush that few other activities could match. Eventually, he began participating in motocross competitions. Motocross is one of the most physically demanding forms of racing. Riders must control powerful bikes while navigating steep jumps, tight turns, and uneven tracks at high speeds. Crashes are common, and injuries are part of the sport. But for someone like Josh, that danger only made it more exciting. He competed in races across different areas, building a reputation as someone who refused to back down. Winning wasn't always the most important thing for him. What mattered was showing up, pushing his limits, and enjoying the ride. People respected that determination. However, living on the edge often comes with consequences. And one day, during a race, everything changed. While competing in motocross, Josh suffered a serious accident that nearly cost him his life. His bike flipped during the race, sending him crashing violently to the ground. The impact was severe enough that he had to be rushed to the hospital. For someone who loved constant movement and adrenaline, the aftermath was incredibly difficult. The crash left him injured and forced him to step away from racing for a long time. Recovery meant hospital visits, pain, and long periods of rest. Instead of racing across dirt tracks, he suddenly found himself stuck in one place. For Josh, that felt like torture. Yet that difficult period also gave him time to think about his future. Racing had been his main focus for years, but now he had to consider what would come next. The answer came from something much older than motocross. In the mountains of North Carolina, moonshining has a deep historical connection to local culture. For generations, families in rural Appalachian communities have produced their own distilled spirits. During the Prohibition era in the United States, between 1920 and 1933, the sale and production of alcohol were banned nationwide. Many people in remote areas began secretly producing liquor to survive financially. Over time, the skill of distilling became a tradition passed down through families. Josh Owens grew up around that tradition. Members of his family had experience making moonshine, and as a child, he often watched the process. The equipment, the smell of fermenting mash, and the careful control of heat inside a still were all familiar parts of his surroundings. So while he was recovering from his racing accident, those memories started coming back. Instead of returning immediately to motocross, Josh decided to reconnect with that part of his heritage. At first, making moonshine was something Josh did quietly. He began experimenting with building his own stills and refining the distilling process. The work required patience and precision. A small mistake could ruin an entire batch, so attention to detail was important. But Josh enjoyed the challenge. Working deep in the woods gave him a sense of peace that racing never could. Instead of the loud chaos of motocross tracks, he now spent long hours surrounded by trees and silence, focusing on the slow process of distillation. For him, the work felt almost therapeutic. It allowed him to rebuild his life after the crash, while reconnecting with traditions that had been part of his community for generations. He had no idea at the time that this new direction would soon place him in front of millions of television viewers. When the Discovery Channel began developing a television series about moonshiners, producers were searching for people who actually lived that lifestyle. They didn't want actors. They wanted individuals who genuinely understood the craft and the culture behind it. Josh Owens fit that description perfectly. When he first appeared on the show Moonshiners, audiences quickly noticed him. His personality stood out immediately. He didn't try to act polished or scripted for the camera. Instead, he simply behaved the same way he did in everyday life. That authenticity made him popular with viewers. Fans appreciated his humor, his bold attitude, and the way he approached challenges with confidence. Over time, he became one of the most recognizable faces on the series. Despite the growing fame, Josh remained largely the same person he had always been. He still preferred a simple lifestyle. He still spent most of his time outdoors, working with his hands and enjoying the freedom he had always valued. But life was quietly preparing another painful chapter for him, one that would test his strength in ways he never expected. Because in 2019, a devastating event would destroy something that meant far more to him than equipment or property. It would take away something he loved deeply, and the emotional impact of that loss would stay with him long after the flames disappeared. For a while, it seemed like Josh Owens had finally found some balance in life. After stepping away from the dangers of motocross racing, he had redirected his energy into moonshining and the growing success of the television show Moonshiners. Fans admired his authenticity and the humor he brought to the screen. Despite the attention that came with television fame, he continued living the same simple lifestyle he had always known. But in 2019, something happened that would shake him deeply. One night, a devastating fire broke out in Josh Owens' barn. By the time he realized what was happening and rushed to the scene, the flames had already spread too far to control. The fire consumed the structure quickly, destroying tools, equipment, and many of the things he relied on for his work. Years of effort vanished in a matter of hours. But the most painful loss wasn't the property or the equipment. Inside the barn was Josh's beloved dog, Cutie Pie. The dog had been a loyal companion for years, often appearing alongside him and becoming familiar to many fans who followed his life. When the fire took Cutie Pie's life, the emotional impact on Josh was devastating. Later, he shared with fans that losing the dog felt like losing a piece of his family. The barn itself represented more than just a building. It held memories, hard work, and parts of the life he had carefully built over time. The destruction left him heartbroken. Support poured in from viewers and followers who had grown attached to him through the show. Messages of sympathy filled social media as people tried to comfort him during one of the most painful moments of his life. But Josh Owens had always been known for one particular quality. He refused to quit. Rebuilding from the ashes. Instead of letting the loss defeat him, Josh began rebuilding. He replaced tools, repaired what he could, and slowly started putting his life back together. It wasn't easy, and it certainly didn't happen overnight, but he kept moving forward step by step. That determination had always defined him. Friends often said that no matter how hard life knocked him down, Josh always found a way to stand back up again. For a while, it seemed like things were improving. He returned to filming for Moonshiners, continued working outdoors, and appeared to be finding his rhythm again. But life had another shocking moment waiting for him. And this time, it would be far more dangerous. In March 2023, Josh Owens was participating in a motorcycle race at the famous Daytona International Speedway in Florida. Motorcycle racing had always been part of his identity. Even after earlier injuries, the passion for riding never truly left him. During the race, something went terribly wrong. Reports later indicated that the front tire of his motorcycle suddenly burst while he was traveling at high speed. The blowout caused him to lose control of the bike, throwing him violently onto the track. The crash happened in seconds. Spectators watched in shock as the race was immediately stopped, and emergency crews rushed to help him. The injuries he suffered were severe. According to updates shared afterward, Josh sustained multiple broken bones, along with serious physical trauma. The crash was so violent that many fans feared the worst when the news first spread online. For days, people waited anxiously for updates about his condition. His family and friends asked supporters to keep him in their thoughts and prayers, as doctors worked to stabilize him. Then, finally, a message arrived that reassured everyone watching. Not long after the accident, Josh posted a video from his hospital bed. The footage was difficult to watch. His face showed signs of the crash, and he appeared exhausted and weak. But despite the pain, he managed to smile and speak to the people who had been worried about him. In the video, he expressed gratitude for surviving the accident. He explained that he was thankful to still be alive, and credited his survival to what he described as the grace of God. Hearing those words from someone who had just endured such a traumatic crash deeply affected many of his supporters. For fans who had followed his journey for years, the moment felt emotional. They had watched him face challenges before, but this accident seemed different. The road to recovery would be long. Doctors warned that Josh's injuries would require extensive healing time. Broken bones and serious physical trauma meant months of rehabilitation. Simple activities that most people take for granted suddenly became major milestones in the recovery process. Walking again, gaining strength, and returning to normal movement would take patience and determination. Some observers even suggested that he might never ride motorcycles again. For someone who had spent so much of his life on two wheels, that possibility was heartbreaking. But Josh refused to give up. As he slowly recovered, he began sharing updates with fans who continued to support him. Each small improvement, standing, walking, gaining strength, became a sign that he was still fighting to reclaim his life. In the process, his story began inspiring others. Many people dealing with injuries or disabilities found motivation in his determination to keep moving forward despite the setbacks. After surviving such a terrifying experience, Josh Owens began speaking more openly about how the accident changed his outlook on life. He explained that coming so close to death makes a person rethink what truly matters. The adrenaline and excitement that once drove him were no longer the only things he valued. Instead, he talked about appreciating simple moments, waking up in the morning, enjoying a quiet day outside, or sharing time with friends. Things that once seemed ordinary suddenly felt meaningful. Fans also noticed a change in him. The wild, fearless personality they once saw on screen appeared calmer. He seemed more thoughtful, more focused on peace than on constant excitement. And while he still remained connected to Moonshiners, his presence on the show became less frequent than before. For many viewers, it was clear that the accidents and hardships had left a lasting mark on him. Josh Owens' life has never followed an easy path. From dangerous motocross crashes to personal loss and a near-fatal racing accident, he has faced challenges that could have ended his story many times over. Yet each time he found a way to keep going. His journey serves as a reminder that behind every television personality is a real human being, someone who experiences pain, loss, and moments of doubt just like anyone else. And while tragedy has been a recurring theme in his life, so has resilience. Because no matter how many times life knocked him down, Josh Owens has always managed to get back up again.